working. Dito sa iba pati sa. Ilang mga fair ko lang. As na video mas possible name us. Mari ko si friends request. You wait tomorrow so yeah. Hello? Hey, Ben, what's going on? Really? Another Zion trip? Hey, that's awesome!
Elder,
Huh?
los monos se salieron y tiraron todos sus pantalones.
Oh, no. Voy a tener que comprar otros.
Pantalones.
Monos. Yeah, Ben, I'm so sorry. I can't narrate this year. I'm a little bit busy. Yeah? Great. Well, good luck. Okay, bye.
Hold on. It can't be Zion too.
We didn't just go to Zion.
We did a bunch of other stuff.
Much better.
Now, where to begin?
I'm sure you probably have a lot of questions.
Who am I?
Why am I here?
What is this video?
Did you say Zion National Park too?
Allow us to explain. You see, a couple years ago, a bunch of us guys from the Hewitt Ward got to take a trip to Zion National Park in Utah. It was an awesome time.
Is this fun, Kai?
No! But we got along really great. So naturally, our leaders decided we should do the trip again.
But it wasn't exactly the same trip.
This time, we made our way through Logan
Salt Lake, including Temple Square and Lagoon,
and Zion.
and also we brought the girls.
I think the leaders needed a big enough change from the stench of last time.
Or the singing. Anyways, the trip started out the same as any other.
A long drive.
It all began with the youth meeting up at the church at 4 in the morning.
Everybody was just a little bit cranky.
It's 4:30.
Are you tired?
Very.
But even though we were a little bit tired, we were still super excited to get going.
You excited about this drive?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm gonna be hanging out with all my buds. So yeah.
In total, we drove about 12 and a half hours.
Our first bathroom break came 6 hours after we embarked.
The ride's been pretty normal.
Can I have your Slim Jim?
Not Slim Jim.
What is it?
We've just been watching a couple movies, watching some Studio C, but it's been pretty fine. 2 hours, we'll have lunch. That should be fun, I guess, because I'm starving. Yeah, I actually have no idea where we are.
We were in Clarendon, wherever the heck that is.
2 hours later, we reached our lunch stop in good old Amarillo. Two hours after that, we made it to Dalhart. Some of us were pretty exhausted at this point.
I'm tired. Sitting.
Long story short, we just drove and drove until we hit Colorado, where we met up with some weird kid and had dinner.
We're somewhere in Denver, south side, at Costco, wholesale. We've stopped, I think we're getting like pizza or something. I don't know. The drive is over. 2 hours completed. That's all I need.
That night, we went to a few different houses.
There were a bunch of members of the church who were just willing to let us stay overnight.
They must have been some of the nicest people in the world.
woke up early that morning too and headed to Logan, Utah.
It was about an 8-hour drive, which we were basically prepared for.
What we weren't ready for was the freezing cold weather outside.
A couple hours in, we stopped at a nice little gas station called Little America.
Alright, Sarah. Wait, come on.
Yeah.
How cold outside is it?
It is refreshing. Been on the way over here for a little bit. It felt so good. And then we did the sunroof. Ben loved it. Ben loved it a lot. He loved it. He loved it a lot. I think that
You having a good time, Ethan?
Oh no, you would have it.
What do you think of the trip so far?
I think it's been great. It's really cold here though. And my cohort, the guy that's supposed to be awake and drive with me, has been useless the entire time.
How cold outside is it?
It's 45 degrees.
45 degrees. Okay.
It looks warm, but it's not.
What are you eating right now?
There's just meat and cheese. Peanut butter jelly and ham and cheese.
Ooh, good combination.
Yep.
Eventually, we made it to our destination for the night, Logan.
No, not that Logan.
That Logan! We were really lucky because Bishop's parents lived in Logan.
They only lived a few streets away from the temple, which meant no more driving for a while. I have a feeling that the leaders were just as tired as we were.
Soon enough, we got the chance to visit the Logan Temple.
The temple itself is the 4th oldest in the world. It's been around since 1884.
So the baptism hall is very nice. You can tell it's an older temple because of not only the architecture, but also the baptismal font itself. It's very nice inside, and also they have carpet in the baptismal font, which is something you don't ever see anymore, or ever. It was a very nice temple, and I felt the spirit. It was really great.
It was fun, spiritual, wet.
It was a really great experience for all the youth to be together in such a good setting.
And a solid start to our trip.
That night, we had the first of several super intense challenges.
Courtesy of the bishop.
Challenge number 1 was a popcorn eating contest.
We split off into groups, and whichever group ate the most popcorn won.
Are you gonna win?
Probably not.
Are you gonna win? Are you gonna win?
Yes.
Okay. You didn't say. Are you gonna win? Are you gonna win?
No.
Are you gonna win?
Probably yes.
Are you gonna win? I'll try.
Yeah.
Are you gonna win?
I mean, no.
Are you gonna win?
I don't know, maybe.
It's great. Are you
Chances
gonna
are
win?
very slim. I'll try to. Yes, I will win.
There you go. That was really zoomed in on you.
my
That's
God.
fire. Logan, get out of here. All right, what group are you guys? What team are you?
Team Trent. Number 3.
Number 3. I'm not playing.
Dude, we got McKay,
All right,
too.
number 3. How are you guys gonna do? How is Team 3 gonna do?
Outstanding.
Outstanding.
I doubt at first, but we're totally gonna win now.
All right,
We got Ben.
I'm gonna go over to group 2 and see what they say. 4. How's group 4 gonna do?
We're gonna die.
You're gonna die?
Hey, Pete.
What group is this? My God. How's group 2 gonna do?
Bad.
Bad?
Horrible. Oh my God.
All right.
You suck.
Hey, how's Team 1 gonna do?
Try stuff for the flag.
We're gonna lose.
You're gonna lose?
Probably, but it's fine. We're okay with
Second?
Second. I'm saying second.
Second's not bad.
First.
Because I don't think
First on the way.
Honestly, I think Trent's team is gonna win. It's kind of rigged, honestly.
Everyone just be quiet. Okay.
Just outlast him.
Okay, listen. So if you spill too much on the ground, you have to pick it off the ground and eat it. I'm okay with some kernels on the ground, but if I see a big pile, you have to pick it up and eat that in order to be a
You weren't in it.
You eat that faster.
Now you're in it.
That group, and that group. All together. Okay. So I need 1 liter. Dad, will you open up a bag? Open the bag is in charge of making sure that there's not too much kernels on the ground next to it. Okay. You ready? You guys got your group?
I've actually missed the gist of this conversation.
3, 2, 1, go!
I'm unbiased.
Flag number 1. Flag number 3. Flag number 4. What team won? Yeah! Team number 1.
Competition?
The popcorn was good.
Popcorn was good.
That's the
How do
only
you
reason
feel
I
about
did.
your performance?
I just went to eat popcorn.
All right, that's
Yeah.
fair. How did you feel about the competition?
I feel cheated.
You feel cheated.
You
I feel cheated. I carried our team and we still lost.
You gave
My team gave up halfway.
How do you feel about the competition?
It was great and it was so much fun.
I'm gonna need to poop later today.
It was intense and maybe a little sickening, but fun nonetheless.
After filling up on popcorn, we fell asleep really easily.
Day 3 was all about Temple Square.
We woke up early again and packed all of our things.
Logan is only about an hour away from Salt Lake, so we at least didn't have to deal with the long drive.
Once we made it to Temple Square, our first stop was Music in the Spoken Word, a weekly program in which the Tabernacle Choir sings several songs, accompanied by a positive message from Lloyd Newell.
Think about the goals you have for your family, for your most cherished relationships. Perhaps humility is a first step toward achieving them.
After Music in the Spoken Word, we were able to have a tour of Temple Square and visited the Christus statue at the Visitor Center.
I think my favorite part probably was Temple Square, touring the Tabernacle.
Temple Square was amazing, but our day wasn't over yet. We also got to hear from the John Bytheway.
Hi, I'm here with the Waco Steak Hewitt Ward. And kids were great. They sat there, they listened, you were awesome. And my job was to come in, give a talk to a bunch of great kids. But your leaders have been with you for days. Sorry, there's a big Camaro pulling out behind me with a 450 V8. But your leaders have been sacrificing, driving, doing all this stuff for you. So you have some awesome leaders that love you, and they do this because they love you and they love the Lord. And it's been good being with you. Thanks, Waco.
After John spoke, we headed to our houses.
Us guys got to stay in a full-on basketball court.
Basketball is my favorite sport. I like the way they dribble up and down the court, just like I'm the king on the microphone. So it's Dr. J and Moses Malone. I like slam dunks and taking it to the hoop. My favorite play is the alley oop. I like the pick and roll. I like the give and go, 'cause it's basketball of Mr. Curtis Blow.
I was definitely the best one out there.
Sunday was easily one of the highlights of our trip, but we were still just getting started.
On Monday, we had a big surprise in store for us. We had planned just to head straight to Zion, but instead, our leaders got us tickets to Lagoon.
We spent the whole day on roller coasters.
Arms up! Yeah, arms up! Yes! It's great! Come on, Sarah! Come on!
3, 2, 1, 0.
Yes, Sayer! Sayer's about to throw up.
Some of us liked the roller coasters more than others.
It was awful! There was about 5,000 sorry Ethans.
My side and arm hurt.
We're not idiots. We're not idiots. Oh my god!
I just don't want to drop this GoPro.
Oh man! Oh man, this is so cool! Oh dude!
You're supposed to yell louder than they are.
How about them apples? Oh crap. Oh crap.
Once we were done at Lagoon, we went from Salt Lake City down to Hurricane, Utah, where our houses were.
Everything was nice and peaceful, of course.
2 hours later.
We had 2 houses in Hurricane. The guy stayed in the same one as last year. We got along about the same as last year, too.
Meanwhile, the girls got a house a couple streets away.
I feel kind of bad. Instead of our vintage pioneer house, they got a luxury home with a hot tub, big backyard, and tricked out basement.
You felt like Percy died?
Poor girls.
We decided to get to sleep as soon as possible.
But this is where the trip gets good.
Except it was already good.
So this is when the trip stays as good as it's been so far? Zion National Park. A land of beauty. A wonder of the natural world.
This kind of sounds familiar.
Oh well.
Anyways, we got another early start so we could get in the park while it was still cool and empty.
Right off the bat, the views were breathtaking, and all the youth were psyched to get hiking. We decided to start with one of the most intense hikes we'd go on.
Yeah, it's gigantic. It took us, we were here forever.
Checkerboard Mesa.
This hike is unique because there isn't really a trail.
Instead, it's a sheer climb up to a steep hill.
The hill is about 1,000 feet total and is called a checkerboard for the unique divots in the mesa.
Without water and endurance, this hike is basically impossible.
It actually wasn't that bad. Very thirsty.
Most of us made it to the top.
Those that didn't enjoyed laughing at everybody else's struggling.
I went like almost to the top, came back down, sat over by the van to wait for my water, and yeah.
It was a great hike to get views of Zion.
And even better to see what hiking would take.
It was amazing. It was beautiful.
Oh my god, it's a really cool hike.
So we went up to that arch. And then we stayed up there for a little bit. And then we came down, and me and Landon may or may not have burned our feet a little bit. Whew. Feet hurt a little bit. I will probably have a few blisters, but that's fine. Who cares?
My favorite part of the Zion trip was hiking Checkerboard Mesa because we hiked together and it was hard to do.
After Checkerboard Mesa, we knew that the week would be tough, but worth it. Our next hike was the Canyon Overlook Trail, the first hike we went on 2 years ago.
Before the Canyon Overlook Trail, though, we found an interesting grotto that we decided to hike.
A few minutes into the hike, we had to cross a small pool of water.
Nobody wanted to get in the water.
At least, almost nobody. Unfortunately for us, passing the pool was the end of the hike.
And we had to go right back where we came.
Careful, Bishop.
We're lucky that we had leaders like Bishop and Papa Johnson that could help us back to the other side.
Once all the fun was over, it was time for the actual hike.
Canyon Overlook Trail is only about a mile long and overlooks the rest of Zion. It's loads easier than the Checkerboard Mesa, so we enjoyed the break.
Since the sun was so strong, we called it a day after the Canyon Overlook Trail. After all, we had several days to tackle all the hikes.
Once we were back in Hurricane, though, our second challenge of the week began. In this challenge, Bishop tasked each one of us with catching M&Ms in our mouth at a distance.
The winner got a pretty hefty sum of money, so there was no messing around.
He still got it.
My kid.
Dropping like fly.
See that?
You gotta catch it, Ranger! Come on, Maddie!
Yeah, it was a pretty great day.
Our next hike was the most dangerous, Angel's Landing. Angel's Landing is a pretty serious hike.
5 miles, tough.
5,000 feet in the air, tougher.
One of the coolest youth on the trip calculated that falling from the top gives you about 18 seconds to live.
So only 16-year-olds or those with parents were allowed to go.
It's not for the faint of heart.
Is this fun, Kai?
Is this fun, McKay?
No.
But as long as you're being safe, it's worth the danger.
How'd you feel? Yeah? How'd you guys feel about that? Landon? How'd you feel about that? Yeah? Alright, how'd you feel about that, Dusky?
I think this was amazing, beautiful, and amazing trip.
Oh my
Alrighty.
Are they sitting?
How'd you feel about this, Emma?
I'm really proud of myself, actually.
Ben?
Yeah, we still gotta go down there.
I feel pretty good.
Ethan?
It was worth it.
Alright.
So worth it.
For the black belt, how'd you feel about that?
It was awesome.
Hey, Bishop? It was good. Alright, now I'm done.
How old are you?
How are you guys not cold? After Angel's Landing, we walked to the lower pool of Emerald Pools.
You don't like hiking, do you?
No.
It was a bummer, but the upper Emerald Pool, along with Observation Point and the Narrows, were closed because of heavy rainfall and rock slides. But that wasn't going to ruin our trip.
Instead of the closed trails, we hiked a few shorter paths for the day.
The lower pool of Emerald Pools is only a mile round trip. After Emerald Pools, we hiked up to Weeping Rock, which is just a half mile.
Fun fact, they call it Weeping Rock because somebody called it Ugly once and now it just can't stop crying. At least, that's what I think happened. Our last hike of the day was a mile-long trip to the opening of the Narrows. We hung out in the cool water for a little bit.
It was an epic day of hiking.
Once we got home for the day, we faced Bishop's third and final challenge.
This challenge was like no other.
It answers an age-old question, one that the universe has been wondering for eons.
How many licks does it take to get to the Tootsie Roll center of a Tootsie Pop?
A good question.
Yup.
Also, the payoff for winning was pretty good again, so we were all on board.
Ben, this hurts.
Who has the most powerful sucker? Still there, you got it. Number one winner! Number one is gone.
I can't say that with your tongue.
Number two! Oh, Ethan's number two. Yeah. You just suck it all off? Landon's number three. Oh wait, no, it's still on. Keep sucking that. We still have 3, 4, and 5. Twist it. Number three.
Yes!
It's gone. Swallow it.
Yeah.
We have 2 more winners still. Landon, you're number 4. Landon, number 4. We got 1 more.
No! Not it. It is not good.
Number 5.
Wait, let me see that.
Close, but not close.
I did pretty good in that one too. And it totally doesn't matter that the bishop's my dad either.
Well, you know, it's not my fault that certain people's saliva works better than others like that. They have to take that to a higher power, in my opinion.
Our final day was an awesome one.
We started the day off with Angel's Landing one more time, with a few more people being brave and coming along.
After Angel's Landing, we split off into a few groups.
Some of us guys were invited to go on the toughest hike there was, West Rim. West Rim is about 10 miles round trip and super intense. We went up an additional height of about 3,000 feet, so we were on par with Observation Point.
And the key here,
Angel's Landing right now?
don't drop your phone.
You like the hike?
Yep, kind of, yeah.
You feeling tired?
Yeah, Angel's Landing plus this is a little tiring. Yeah.
Okay.
But then the springs are going to be awesome, so
I bet, yeah.
destination's always worth it.
The toughest part of this hike probably came when we ran out of water. We heard from some hikers that there was a spring at the top of the mountain, but I guess they had a different idea of what a spring was.
McKay, what do you think of the spring?
It is depressing. Like it makes...
Disappointing.
We hiked so hard up here. Well, at least the views were good.
Yeah.
It's a cool deer. Yeah. But we hiked so hard up here, and the sign said beautiful spring. And this is what we got. A swamp. A swamp. A freaking swamp.
You think we'll meet Shrek?
No.
Even though we were exhausted, we made it safely to the bottom of the trail, and we had a great time.
Wow!
Meanwhile, another group decided to go on another ridiculous hike. Ours was called the Sand Bench Path. See, it's called Sand Bench because the entire path is through sand. It's actually meant for horses. Sand Bench was about 4 miles round trip and was, as one of us said, terrible all the way through.
Didn't you say that?
Anyways,
Both West Rim and Sand Bench were great hikes to end Zion out with, but our trip wasn't over yet.
once we got back, we had a great discussion about what we'd learned and how we'd grown on the trip.
It was a pretty special occasion, so we didn't get any videos or anything. But McKay had this to say.
Okay, I'm gonna keep this shirt forever. I've got sweat from the hikes, I have tears from this devotional, and I have blood from my nose. Blood, sweat, and tears right there at its greatest. And I will never forget this shirt and never forget this trip. I love Waco.
Finally, it was time to get to sleep. Apart from a long drive, our trip was done. Looking back on this trip, I'm really glad I was able to go.
It was a once, well, technically twice in a lifetime experience, made even better by the friends we had to grow with and the leaders we had to look up to.
Truly, this was a trip we'll never forget.